Henry Phillips had gone on blind date after blind date with one rule he never broke. Never let them see the truth. He sat in the diner booth across from Ellen, his worn wallet resting between them like a prop that had finally betrayed him. The coffee had gone cold. Outside, traffic rolled past, indifferent. "I'm not pretending anymore," Ellen said quietly. Her voice wasn't angry. That was what made it dangerous. "Welcome back and thank you for choosing to spend your time here with us at Tales. Your presence means everything, and we promise this story will stay with you long after it ends. If you believe in stories that change perspectives, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let's build this community together. Now, let's get into the story." Henry looked up, already knowing this moment felt different from all the others. From every carefully rehearsed exit, every polite goodbye, every woman who had walked away once the illusion cracked. "You're not struggling the way you say you are," she continued. "And you never were." Henry's chest tightened. For months, he had controlled every detail, his clothes, his car, his stories. He had told himself it was protection. A test. A way to make sure love didn't come with conditions. But sitting there now, watching Ellen's steady gaze hold him in place, he realized the truth had outgrown the lie. Because Henry wasn't afraid she'd leave if she knew he had money. He was afraid she'd leave because he never trusted her with the truth. 18 months earlier, in the wreckage of a divorce that stripped him of half his fortune and most of his certainty, Henry Phillips had made a vow that felt like survival at the time. If love was going to cost him everything again, he wanted proof it was real. So he designed a system. Back then, Henry still believed the lie was keeping him safe. The divorce had hollowed him out in ways money couldn't cushion. One day he was a husband with a shared future, the next, he was signing papers that divided everything into columns and percentages. His ex-wife didn't shout or cry. She just said it plainly, that love had limits, and Henry had reached his. When she walked away with half his fortune and a man who promised more, something inside Henry quietly collapsed. He told himself he'd learned a lesson. Love wasn't blind. It was practical. Conditional. A transaction disguised as affection. So he built rules that felt like armor.
Thank you.
No last names.
You too.
No expensive restaurants. No signs of comfort. He dressed down, drove a failing car, and let his card decline like clockwork. Each date became a test he didn't announce, a trap he justified as honesty in disguise. The results came fast. Women checked their phones when the bill arrived. Some smiled politely and never answered his texts again. One sighed and said she'd forgotten something at home. Another laughed, sharp and careless, when dessert was off the table. Each rejection reinforced the logic. Each quiet humiliation made the system feel necessary. Henry told himself it was working. He almost believed it, right up until one night proved him wrong. Ellen worked the late shift at a diner most people passed without noticing. The booths were cracked vinyl, the coffee always a little burnt, and the neon sign flickered like it was tired too. Ellen fit into that rhythm, moving fast, never careless, refilling cups before they were empty, smiling even when her feet clearly hurt. Exhaustion clung to her, but it never made her sharp. Henry first noticed her because she didn't rush kindness. When an older customer fumbled his change, she waited. When a plate slipped, she laughed it off and cleaned it herself. No performance. No resentment. Their first date was at a modest bistro Henry chose carefully. Nothing flashy. Nothing revealing. When the bill arrived, he followed the routine, wallet out, pause, a quiet apology as he pretended his card had failed him. Ellen didn't blink. She reached into her apron, pulled out folded bills, and paid as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You can get the next one," she said, already standing. No disappointment. No calculation. Henry should have felt relieved. Instead, something tightened in his chest. This wasn't how the test was supposed to feel. As they walked outside, Henry realized something unsettling. Passing the test didn't feel like winning at all. They met in places that didn't ask questions. Corner diners with cracked vinyl seats. Late-night walks past darkened storefronts. A park bench overlooking the river where the city hummed at a distance but never interrupted. Henry chose every location carefully, cheap, unremarkable, save for the version of himself he was performing. Ellen never complained. When his card declined again at a small cafe, she smiled and slid her tips across the counter before he could reach for his wallet. "It's fine," she said softly, like she was protecting his pride instead of exposing it. He told his lies gently now. Practice had made them smooth. Rent was late. Freelance work was slow. Opportunities were coming soon. Each one landed cleanly, without tremor. Meanwhile, Ellen talked about double shifts. About helping her younger sister through nursing school. About the mother she lost too early and the way responsibility doesn't ask if you're ready. Henry listened more than he spoke. The more she revealed, the smaller he felt, not poorer, just less honest. Her generosity wasn't charity. It was instinct. And somehow, without raising her voice or demanding anything, she held the power between them. Henry had built the lie to feel safe. But now, the lie begins to feel heavier than the truth ever did. Henry hadn't planned for the worlds to collide. But custody schedules don't bend for secrets, and one Saturday afternoon, Marcus stood beside him outside the diner, small hand wrapped around Henry's finger, eyes curious and observant in ways that felt older than 8. Ellen stepped outside when she saw them. There was no hesitation in her smile. No awkward performance. She crouched to Marcus's level, introduced herself softly, asked him about the comic book tucked under his arm. Within minutes, he was explaining entire plotlines with animated hands while she listened like it mattered. It did. Henry watched something fragile take shape. Marcus laughed, a full, unguarded sound Henry hadn't heard in weeks. When Ellen offered to join them at the park, Marcus nodded before Henry could answer. They walked together like it wasn't new. Like it had always been this way. At the swings, Ellen pushed gently while Marcus shouted for higher. She looked back at Henry once, not questioning, not claiming, just present. And for the first time, the lie felt dangerous. Not to him. To his son. Henry opened his mouth twice that evening. The truth sat ready, trembling behind his teeth. But when Marcus slipped his hand into Ellen's, Henry chose silence instead of truth. Didn't happen all at once. It was the way he never let her walk him home. The way he always suggested meeting 2 streets away from his apartment. The way rent was supposedly late every month, yet he never seemed afraid of eviction. Ellen didn't ask questions. She started watching. Henry's shoes were worn, but expensive leather doesn't crease like that unless it once cost something. His watch was simple, but not cheap. And once, when he thought she wasn't looking, he handed Marcus a folded bill that wasn't the kind you carry when you're counting tips. The story still made sense. It just didn't feel true anymore. She kept smiling. Kept paying sometimes. Kept listening when he spoke about interviews and freelance clients. But something inside her shifted from believing to observing. Henry noticed it. He laughed a little too quickly now. Explained details she hadn't questioned. Checked his phone more often, as if timing mattered. Their dates continued. Their hands still found each other. But between every touch was a quiet space neither of them named. Until one evening, leaving earlier than expected, Ellen took a different turn down his street. And she saw something she couldn't unsee. The building wasn't old. It rose from the quiet street in glass and steel, doorman posted beneath warm lighting that didn't flicker. Ellen stood across from it longer than she meant to. She checked the address twice. It was his. When she stepped inside, The air smelled like polished marble and money that didn't worry about rent. The elevator opened to a view of the city stretched wide and glittering, no cramped windows, no peeling paint, no second-hand furniture waiting upstairs. Henry opened the door before she knocked twice. The silence between them was immediate. No explanations came. None were needed. Behind him, she caught glimpses, clean lines, expensive quiet, a skyline that belonged to someone who never counted tips at midnight. Her eyes didn't accuse. They understood. Henry felt it then, not fear of exposure, but the collapse of control. The system. The test. The careful script. All of it dissolved under one steady look. I didn't want to lie, he started, but the words felt thin in the open air. Ellen nodded once. Not in agreement. In comprehension. I think we should talk, she said softly. He swallowed. Yes. They agreed to meet again, but for a different reason. The diner felt smaller that night. Same cracked vinyl seats. Same low hum of late customers. But nothing between them was familiar anymore. Ellen sat across from him, hands folded, posture calm. That hurt more than anger would have. It wasn't the money, she said quietly. It was the choice. Henry's throat tightened. You decided I needed to be tested. You decided I couldn't handle the truth. You let me believe you were struggling while her voice steadied. While I rearranged my life to make space for you. He stared at the table before forcing himself to look at her. My marriage ended because I trusted the wrong reasons. I thought love was safer if I removed the incentive. If someone stayed when there was nothing to gain, he exhaled. I built a system. Dates. Stories. Declined cards. I told myself it was protection. It was control, Ellen corrected gently. He didn't argue. I never needed you to be poor, she continued. I needed you to be honest. Silence settled, heavy and final. Trust wasn't dramatic when it broke. It simply stopped breathing. Henry reached for something to fix it. There was nothing. Ellen stood, eyes clear despite the hurt. I hope you learn the difference. Then she walked away without closure. The apartment was quiet in a way it had never been before. The skyline still glittered. The marble still shone. The silence, however, no longer felt luxurious. It echoed. Henry stood by the window, city lights stretching endlessly beneath him. He had built this life carefully, every contract negotiated, every risk calculated. Success had rules. Success made sense. Love had not. Marcus's laughter lingered in his memory. Ellen's steady voice replayed in fragments. I needed you to be honest. There was money in his account. Security in his walls. But none of it could purchase back the look in her eyes when understanding replaced trust. Across town, Ellen folded aprons at the diner with practiced movements. She smiled at customers. She went home exhausted. She did not cry. Not because she wasn't hurt. But because she had survived worse than disappointment. She had loved honestly. That mattered. Henry finally understood what the test had cost him. Not exposure. Not pride. Possibility. No grand gestures followed. No dramatic chase through the rain. Just two people carrying truth in separate directions. And somewhere between regret and resilience lingered a question neither of them could yet answer. Can love, once tested, survive the truth?